Okay, and we're live. I'm so excited for this conversation. There's already quite a few people in the waiting room. Hello, everyone. I'm so excited to see you again, Lou. It has been way too long. I've
I'm
been
so
waiting for this
excited.
one.
Yeah, it's so exciting to be here.
I've been waiting for this divergent discussion for a while now. I've been looking at my diary, and usually I think neurodivergent individuals, we don't like looking ahead because for me, it makes me feel
Absolutely not.
anxious. So I just kind of like stick, okay, what's the next hour in my day? But for you, I was like, okay, the 22nd is almost here. So you've overridden or I don't even know if that's a word, but you've overcome my anxiety.
I love it. I've been so excited as well since the last one. I've been like, yes, let's go. It's
Yes,
so
good.
nice.
Awesome. Okay, so we are actually speaking about anxiety. So this is a perfect topic. I'm going to do a quick intro for those who don't know me and Lou. You should definitely know Lou. She's amazing. So everyone, welcome to our divergent discussion. My name is Karla. I don't know why I have to read who I am because I'm like, am I going to forget
Yeah,
something
who am
about
I?
myself? Like, what is my name? But I am a registered psychotherapist. I'm also the clinical lead. See there. I should have read that. I'm the clinical lead here at Caboose, and I'm busy currently as a PhD researcher, specifically on what we're speaking about. So the internalizing symptoms of ADHD woman with ADHD. So it's a very interesting topic for me. And I was also diagnosed with anxiety. So that's also a personal reason for me. But I think a lot of us do deal with a lot of anxiety. Caboose is amazing. Caboose exists to create belonging, understanding, and support for neurodivergent people. At the heart of what we do are neuronuggets, and Lou is also in the neuronugget series. She does amazing series and episodes there on anxiety and also working with your employers and your neurodivergent. So check that out for sure. It's short, practical guides that help you understand how your brain works and find ways to make work and life easier, relationships too. They also help workplaces and build genuinely inclusive spaces. This is a reminder that the Divergent discussion is being recorded and we will upload these to our YouTube channel. So check out all of the older ones. And Lou is also there in a previous one that we were speaking at. We'll also have time at the end for audience questions. So please feel free to just write them down in the question section or in the chat check section. I'm going to do a quick bio. Please change anything that isn't correct, but Lou's an award-winning speaker and creator as the force behind the platform at neurodivergent_Lou. Lou has become a trusted voice on autism with an audience of over 400,000 followers and a monthly reach of more than 3 million people. That's amazing. And I think the biggest reason why that is amazing is the quality of videos and what you say. And for more and more people to hear that, I just think it's a gift. I'm really happy about that. I just want you to grow and grow your channels more so more people can hear how you speak about neurodivergence and autism and everything in between. Drawing on her own lived experience, Lou delivers powerful, compassionate, and empowering insights that resonate with a global community. Her work shares the everyday realities of being autistic in a non-autistic world, offering understanding and practical tools for thriving. Her content has had a life-changing impact on countless people, myself included, with followers describing her work as genuinely transformative. That's awesome. Thank you
Thank
for what
you.
you do.
It's so cool to hear it suddenly spoken. Like, wow, thank you so much.
No,
That's
but
lovely.
it's true. It really is. Your videos are amazing, and just the passion that you have when you talk, I absolutely love that. It's such a worthy cause. You know, it's something that we need to speak about more. So we're going to be talking about anxiety, and like I said, I'm very excited about this. But there's definitely a difference in anxiety for me personally about like what we learn as a therapist, as a person in school about what is anxiety for a more typical individual and then what is anxiety for an autistic person. So I wanted to ask you what do you think most people get wrong? What does autistic anxiety actually feel like?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I experience a lot is that there's this assumption that you can always tell that someone's anxious from the outside. And I think for so long when you're autistic, you sort of almost grow up learning that the way that you experience and process the world is almost wrong or not understood by others. And I think that really shapes how we experience that anxiety. Like for me, from a really young age, I remember feeling very anxious about sort of the world being so overstimulating, like being like, it's very loud in here. And other people are going, no, it's not loud, like it's okay, like all of those things. But actually, when it feels like everyday sounds are sort of like grating in your bones, like that's how it sort of feels for me. You sort of learn that actually your anxiety and how you feel about things is not going to be understood and not going to be accepted. And for me, there's been a very sort of real way of like hiding those feelings and sort of learning to hide that anxiety and mask it. And I think that can be such a big part of what being autistic and anxious means. But I also think there's another part of it that's misunderstood in terms of, I think there's sometimes this sort of assumption that autistic people do experience anxiety in the same way as non-autistic people, but actually it can be so different in terms of how it shows up for us and actually responding to and managing that anxiety. Like for me, I know I experience anxiety that things that non-autistic people just find slightly bizarre. Like for me, ticking clocks give me massive sensory issues and therefore create this massive anxiety, which is almost constant all of the time. But for non-autistic people, that can be really hard to understand of like actually how that feels and how that shows up. So I think there are sort of massive misunderstandings about anxiety for autistic people and what those experiences really are like.
Yeah, that's such a good example because it's something that is constant. Like there are
Mm,
clocks everywhere, ticking
mm,
clocks everywhere. And the way that you described it with like that constant feeling of being anxious or constantly feeling anxious, I remember my therapist was telling me, you're always in a state of
mm,
anxiety. Like you're always a little bit anxious. That's your normal kind of status quo. And and I was like, yeah, of course. Like I'm always sweating a little bit. I'm always like,
mm.
sorry about my dog. He wants to join the conversation.
We love
But
it.
everyone's welcome. But yeah, so I'm always feeling a little bit uneasy. And I thought it was normal. You know, I was speaking to another autistic individual, Stephanie Bethany, who's also an amazing creator. And she was saying, I always thought that the world was this intense for everyone. And
Mm.
when I realized, oh, okay, this is actually just for me, like, and you can see it in the brain scans, you know, that it is more intense, that's when she realized, oh, okay, I'm going to validate my feelings a bit. So I love that you said that. I think it's difficult though if the clocks are everywhere.
Yeah, like that anxiety being that sort of constant thing. And I think that is so common in terms of internalizing it and seeing it as almost like, for me, I was like seeing it as almost this flaw in who I was as a person. I was like, I'm just far too sensitive. I just need to get on with it. Everybody else can get on with it. Why can't I? And then having that realization of actually I'm autistic and actually the work other people aren't experiencing the world in this level of intensity every day, all of the time. And actually having that validation and understanding of yourself to know it's okay to feel like this and it is okay and it's a natural reaction to this world that sort of from the very beginning has not been designed with us in mind, and there are so many challenges that come from that. And I think that validation is the thing that has been massive for me in terms of understanding that it is okay to be who we are and it is okay to feel anxious and it is not our fault and it is not a flaw in our existence.
Yeah, it's so important. And also just mentioning when you're feeling anxious, I think that has helped me so much to first of all see who are my real friends who can say, okay, this restaurant is too loud for you. Let's move. You know, like, or let's find a different place to go and eat. And then also the second thing there would be to say, well, yes, it is bothering me that much. So yeah, it's very powerful. My second question here is how much of autistic anxiety is less about what if thoughts, because we have a lot of those and shoulds, and more about living in a world that isn't built for autistic people? I know you touched on it, but just to kind of delve
Yeah.
into it a bit more.
Yeah, I think for me, it's like this sort of massive, like, combination of both of those things of like fundamentally the world not being designed for autistic people, and even things like the anxiety of communication can be absolutely huge and very sort of stressful for autistic people. And that sort of sensory experience of feeling like you're on the tube at rush hour, but all of the time, even when for other people these spaces are silence, for us it can be so anxiety provoking. And I think there's also things about communication, like when we talk about the world, it also includes how we sort of communicate and how people communicate with us. And I think when you're autistic and you struggle with things like the communication and how people communicate, I think that can be massively challenging. And I think there is a lot of talk actually about how autistic people communicate and our experiences, but actually the non-autistic world and how non-autistic people communicate can be so challenging and so hard to understand. If they're struggling to understand us, we're definitely struggling to understand them. So I do think there is a lot of anxiety that comes from those very real experiences. And for me, like a lot of my what I'm thinking comes from logical responses of those challenges to those challenging experiences that I've had in the world. Like, I know for me, I have had a lot of difficulties with communication and being misunderstood. So then, of course, you're going to be anxious about those things. Or if you know that, in the past, the environment has been very overwhelming for you, of course, then you're going to be imagining those scenarios over and over again when you are going into an environment that is really overwhelming for you. So I think it is both things. And it is, for me, owning the fact that the world isn't designed for us has been really important in terms of understanding where that anxiety is coming from and sort of that validation of my own needs as well.
Yeah, and accommodating where you can, and also knowing that sometimes you won't be able to accommodate. Like if it is unpredictable when you go into an environment and it's super noisy, and then having kind of like a little bit of an SOS bag or a decompression time afterwards, because you're still noticing how intense it was. I like that, that you have like a plan. And the communication is so difficult.
Yeah, I think for me, like it is so important having that sort of plan and that sort of like that pre-planning. So like for me, I will use Google Earth to like walk through environments in advance. So
Nice.
then I know like what the environment is going to look like, what those sensory challenges are potentially going to be, but also like reducing that anxiety with the unpredictability. And I think even doing that kind of thing and having the conversation with people that I'm going with, that actually, if I tell them a certain phrase, perhaps they know that I need to leave and they will help me to sort of do that and navigate that situation, can be so helpful, just knowing that there is sort of a way out of those experiences as well. And I think knowing for me that it's okay to say no to things, if they're going to make me too anxious and they're going to be too overwhelming. Like for me, I found there's this very sort of careful balance of like making sure I'm doing things that I want to do, even though they can be sometimes stressful. But also if it's something that I know isn't going to work for me, being able to say no. Like I spent so long going to very overwhelming parties and social situations that I knew I was going to find incredibly anxiety provoking because I thought I should do them. And now there's been something so freeing and going in being able to say, actually, no, that's not right for me. And I will sort of meet my own social needs in different ways and with the people that are right for me, rather than putting myself in situations which are very challenging. So it is definitely that sort of balance of planning and preparation, but also knowing where your own sort of boundaries are and having that confidence to be able to say when things aren't quite right too.
Yeah, I really love that you can say no, and that you're giving yourself kind of like you're empowering yourself to be able to say no. I have a safe friend here that I go to when I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I absolutely love her because she just gets me. And I will go to her and I'll say, it's very loud. And then she just says to me, "You're doing a great job." Like every time we're in a noisy environment, she just says this like safe phrase of, "You're doing a great job. You're doing wonderful." And I was just like, I'll remember to breathe out then. That's kind of like my cue of like, okay, I can drop my shoulders. I can actually just take a breath out. I don't have to keep it all together.
Mm,
That's always how I when I'm so stressed. Change is a big thing. It's a big
mm.
theme also for a lot of autistic people. Why is constant change so anxiety provoking? I mean, that's kind of a question that like even saying it makes me feel a bit anxious. Constant change is anxiety provoking, and last minute plans, unpredictability, changing expectations, social energy demands, all of these things. Why do you, I know that we feel it, but why do you
Mm.
think and how do we explain it to others?
For me, a big part of it feels related to being very detail oriented for me. Like my brain will be seeing every single detail and processing every single detail, whether that's like a social plan. For me, I'll be processing all of that and like thinking about all the detail, or whether it's a sensory environment, picking up all of that detail in that environment. Whereas we know that sort of that's different maybe in non-autistic people, where they sort of see the bigger picture before then seeing the details in the situations. So for me, when that is a change of plan, it's not just about sort of having to navigate that change, but it's also about reprocessing all of the details of that change and sort of breaking down each step and navigating that step as well. So I think it is a big part of that sort of detailed oriented way that we process. But I think there's also another part of it where when the world is so chaotic for people, like I think that can be really hard when you are having that change of plan, when it's so overwhelming already. And there are things like the sensory input, there's people communicating in a way that feels very alien. All of those things are already things that we're dealing with that other people might not even know about or be aware of. So actually it's not just that change of plan, but it's also navigating the change in sensory, the change in communication, all of those other changes, as well as that sort of struggle too.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing that we don't think about, that we've
Mm,
pre-planned, we've seen it in our mind. And like you said, like sometimes we'll even go on Google Maps. What I do is
mm,
I actually do like a pre-run. So let's say I
yeah.
have to go to a new dentist. I drive to the dentist the day before and I park outside the dentist. I'm like, okay, so it took me 20 minutes to get here. This was the road. This is what I've kind of seen on the road.
Mm.
This is the music that made me feel calm when I was driving here. This is how it looks like. I'll even sometimes go into the place just to kind of familiarize myself. But now, if somebody told me, okay, they're changing, locations, you need to go to a different location, immediately I'm like, that's not what I prepped.
Mm,
And because we love systems and patterns, and I think it's like, it makes sense in our mind. And then all
mm.
of a sudden it's like, now we need to change everything, like the timing, what we're wearing. Is it colder there? Is it warmer? Everything changes. Yeah, I think it's intense. Do you think that, I know this is a difficult question to ask, but do you think it is needed that we push ourselves to be okay with a bit of change, maybe to be with a bit more of a chaotic friend every now and then, just to kind of experience, change more so that we become a bit more used to it?
Yeah, so for me, it's like this very almost careful balance that is so hard to
Mhm.
navigate. Like, for me, I find that it's this sort of struggle of like, sometimes I know that it's like I can't cope and I can't manage that change and it is too much. But other times I also know that actually, maybe it's something related to a special interest. Maybe it's something with a friend that's really important to me. Like sometimes there are changes, and having those changes and navigating those changes can be really important. But I also don't think it's always right to push yourself out of your comfort zone. And like there has definitely been times where I haven't even realized how much I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and then got to the point where I've realized actually that was like really too much. And I didn't even realize that that was sort of pushing myself out of that comfort zone as well. So I do think it is a very careful balance. One thing that has helped me a lot is having like a backup plan for things. I know like for me, public transport is really sort of a struggle because it's constantly changing. So for me, I'll have like backup plans. So I have like a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C of like, this is what I'll do if it all runs to plan. This is how I'll manage if, the train's delayed. This is what I'll do. This is the plan that I will take, so that it's like there is that consistency and there is that sort of constant even when things do change. So I think for me that has been really helpful in terms of being able to do the things that I want to do and that are really important to me, but also not pushing myself out of my comfort zone to the point that it's very overwhelming.
Yeah, and also knowing, like you said, like knowing where those
Mm,
limits are very difficult for us because we go
mm,
from one extreme to another. So a lot of times we would be pushing ourselves too much, and then all of a sudden we're kind of depleted from energy. So yeah, I really like the fact that you're going from plan A, plan B, plan C, and then if there
Yeah.
are some changes, that's okay because you've planned for some other ones. Okay, I need to get through some of these questions because we've got
Yeah.
amazing audience questions, so I want to get to those too.
So excited.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to get to that. So, okay, a lot of autistic people describe feelings like everyone else knows the social rules and they miss the memo. And you touched on this where you were saying about the communication too. But how does that experience feed anxiety when we kind of see it as well? This is a personal belief, but I see it as sometimes as everybody is part of this script or this play, and I'm just sitting there as an audience member and I'm like, when do I go in? Am
Mm.
I part of this? That's how I sometimes feel.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Like for me, I will have like pre-planned scripts in my head of like how I'm expecting like a small talk social interaction to go. And
Yeah.
then when it doesn't go that way, it can be very like off-putting and very challenging. Like, and it definitely does always feel like everyone has this sort of hidden social script of like how to be and how to do, but we just maybe don't have that. For me, it's meant that I'm constantly scanning myself and everyone else in the room for like mistakes that I've made. So I'll be like really conscious of everything I've said and be like scanning to check that I haven't done something wrong or I haven't said the wrong thing, and I'll be like really monitoring myself. And I think it is really interesting in terms of how that feeds anxiety as well, and that sort of loss of trust in your own perception of things, because it definitely has happened to me where I've completely misunderstood what somebody said, and then that can create all sorts of sort of challenges and difficulties as well, and you losing trust in like, actually, can I read this situation or not? And I think there was also a really interesting study about how neurotypical people can make sort of thin sliced judgments on autistic people and actually assume that autistic people are less likable within seconds of meeting them, and how sort of that is that very real discrimination that autistic people face for being autistic, even when people aren't aware that they are. So I think that is that sort of struggle with social communication and those judgments from other people. And I do think that can really feed into it, especially where we have had those challenges with social interaction in the past.
That's sad because just from my ex who's autistic, and he would go
Mm,
into a conversation and he would just, if somebody said something that he disagrees with, he would just say, no, that's not right. And
mm,
that caused a lot of adversity in the conversation because people, usually people would say, oh, I slightly disagree, but he doesn't
mm,
slightly, completely
mm,
disagree. So it would be a very jarring moment.
mm,
Yeah, it's not because autistic individuals want to argue. I
mm,
don't think anyone wants to wake up in the mornings and say, you know what, today I want to argue. But I think it's just this is what we believe in so concretely. And we want to kind of have those deeper conversations and
mm,
make it known that it's important for us. But yeah, it's a difficult topic, and I think we can have a whole divergent discussion
mm.
on that topic alone. Sorry. Okay, so let's move over to sensory overload because I don't think we're going to be able to solve all the problems today with communication, but I think it's an ongoing conversation. I think it's good to just know that it exists and that we can work through it with those people that we trust. What about sensory overload? It can obviously create a lot of anxiety all by itself for us. How does sensory bombardment impact autistic individuals? And what does that look like in real life? So, public spaces, crowded environments, noise, light, smells, and that feeling where you can't escape it.
Yeah, like for me, it's definitely feels like being on the tube constantly, all of the time. It's like a bombardment of sensory sort of input.
Mm,
And for me, all of the noises at the same level. So I'm hearing like the buzzing of electricity at the same level of people sort of talking. So I find it really hard to distinguish between different sensory inputs in that environment. And that in itself is very stressful. Like for me, my brain isn't filtering out that sensory input. So it's that constant and actually very physically sort of painful as well as anxiety
mm,
provoking. And then when you have that understanding of actually other people aren't experiencing the world at that intensity, I think it is really hard, and that anxiety can be a sort of very natural part of experiencing the world,
mm,
and that intensity of actually I need to leave the situation. And sometimes leaving the situation is absolutely the right thing to do. Like for me, I've definitely pushed myself into spaces that are very overstimulating in the past, and actually it hasn't been the most helpful thing to do. And actually recognizing for me which spaces I can push myself into and actually which spaces are too much and I don't have that energy to navigate, I think is really helpful.
Yeah. I think it's also, knowing that it's totally okay to sometimes
Mm.
say, look, I just can't do this. I love that you said that you learned how to say no,
Mm.
because that was so empowering. I sometimes have like a bet with some of my clients where I'm like, okay, let's see who can say no the most this week.
Mm.
And just starting off, I think I was watching a video somewhere about this, but maybe it might have been Trevor Noah. Yeah, because he's got
Mm.
ADHD. So he was saying, I start my sentences when somebody asks me something, I say no. And then I
Mm.
think about it if I have the time, because our innate, well, definitely my innate, personality, I guess, or what I want to say to people is like, yes, I can help. Definitely. Let me see how I can help you.
Mm.
But then I don't think about my own energy levels.
Mm.
So, yeah, and that goes with the sensory overload. We really need to look after ourselves first. What about, so for a lot of autistic people, anxiety doesn't come and go. It's just always kind of there,
Mm.
like we said in the beginning. Why do you think anxiety becomes such a constant for some people? Because some autistic people would mention to me that they don't feel that level of constant anxiety. But why do you think some people, I think we were talking about the internalizing symptoms.
Mm.
Do you think that's part of it?
Yeah, I do. I think there are lots of things that can feed into it. Like, I know for me,
Mm.
delayed processing is so massive. Like, for me, sometimes massive things have happened that have been really distressing and really difficult, but I just will have no emotional reaction because I don't really feel that emotion and really struggle. And I think sometimes that can be misunderstood as you being sort of cold or not understanding the situation. But actually, for sometimes it can mean that the emotion just hasn't hit and hasn't processed. And that can actually show up like for days afterwards of just like this constant underlying anxiety that you don't really know what it is, but it's just sort of always there. And I think that can be a really big part of it. And for me, it's also been that masking of my autistic traits. And for me, like learning to hide and sort of have this internal monologue almost of all the things that I see myself as needing to do, like making eye contact, smiling, social scripts, all of those things, that actually it becomes so exhausting that you're constantly monitoring yourself and having these things. I think that in itself can be very anxiety invoking, and then you add sensory and communication on top and you have almost this massive sort of shaken bottle of very overwhelming emotions. So I do think it definitely can be experienced in that way, of that anxiety being a constant in people's lives.
Mhm. And maybe having like a period or a time in the day where you can completely unmask and just check in with yourself, that could be probably helpful. Where even if it's not with a person, like my dog is definitely my
Mm.
co-regulator. So he goes everywhere with me. And when I'm feeling stressed, I'll just sit there and like really just like pet him and brush him. And then I'll ask myself, okay, how am I feeling? How stressed am I? How much energy do I have today? And how many spoons do I have left, or
Mm.
whatever analogy we use? Yeah, I think it's just we need to find a safe person or a safe pet to unmask
Mm.
a little bit and just be ourselves. That's
Yeah,
for me.
absolutely. Massive.
If autistic anxiety is often a response to the environment plus the overwhelm and the uncertainty, what do you think actually helps? And we were talking about one now, but for you personally, what would help?
Yeah, I think for me, like having those social scripts that I can use to advocate for my own needs is so helpful. Like for me, I will say things like, I really struggle with bright lights. Can you turn them down? And then it doesn't rely on me saying I'm autistic to a room of strangers, but actually it allows me to advocate for those needs that actually then reduces that anxiety and makes the environment better. But I've also found like being really open with some of my friends about, oh, I really struggle with the lights or I struggle with that social environment actually means that other people are more comfortable sharing their own needs with me and having that, like sharing their own struggles. So reframing it as actually by advocating for my own needs, I'm helping make this environment better for everyone, helping everybody feel comfortable. For me, it makes it really helpful in terms of reducing that anxiety around advocating for myself. But I also think being pre-prepared for situations, like having a plan of like, okay, this is what I'm going to do if I get overwhelmed. These are the steps I'm going to take. This is sort of the pre-walkthrough I've done. But also having those very practical tools like noise cancelling headphones, having a fidget toy with me, having those things that actually are going to make that concrete difference to that sensory environment and reduce that anxiety from that, I think is very important as well. And then also like managing that anxiety through my schedule, my plan of like, okay, this is my decompression time. This is the time that I know I'm going to use a lot of energy. So this is the time I've kind of carved out afterwards to maybe engage in a special interest or to do the things that do regulate me. I think is really helpful in terms of those sensory tools, but also validating our own experiences. I think for me, like I spent so long trying to suppress that anxiety, and actually now I will sort of approach it with, it's okay if the world is overwhelming for me. It wasn't built for us. That creates real challenges. It's okay to feel like that. For me, really helps me navigate that situation as well.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing for me is when about 20 years ago when I started in this field, I would always, and I'm still doing it now, I would always put like scarves around my neck because I get really anxious and I sweat here. And then I get red when my neck is actually not so red today because I'm comfortable with you. That's a big thing, Lou.
We love it. We love it.
But usually I'm like really red, so I would just cover up. I would put more makeup on. I would put like scarves on. I even remember my mom saying, you should, because I was on TV once, and she said, maybe wear a scarf next time. And I was like, oh, that makes me want to camouflage and mask more. So now I show my friends, like when I'm in a noisy restaurant, I did the other day, and I showed them how the rash on my neck. And my friend was like, what? Like that looks like you're having an attack or something. And I was like, yeah, but I am. It's a sensory overload attack, you know? And I was then telling them, look, I'm just going to go to the toilet. So I went to the toilet. I was putting some water on my face and stayed maybe a little bit too long in the toilet, but that's fine because I was with safe people. I think it's that validation of like, this is super overwhelming for us. And it's okay. We just have to manage and support ourselves through it and find others that can. It makes a massive difference. So I love that you said that. What about the mindset shifts that have been helpful for you about this topic, anxiety?
I think the biggest thing has been like realizing that it's not my fault. It's okay. Like I'm not doing something wrong. I don't need to change myself or change who I am. It's okay to be me. But also finding the right people, like you say, is so important and actually has shifted my own mindset. Like being around like my neurodivergent friends who will like use a fidget toy or will take themselves outside to regulate themselves. You learn that actually that's very important and that's okay to do. And seeing those people do it for me was so powerful. Like there will always be like the biggest place in my heart for the people who have changed my life because they made me realize that it's okay to be me and it's okay to be anxious and it's okay to accommodate ourselves in this world. And all of those things and those friendships, I think, are absolutely incredible. Like, I think that is so much that it is seeing other people regulate themselves and seeing other people sort of have those boundaries that I didn't always have has been absolutely life-changing. So I think it's so important to have those conversations and to have those open conversations actually and see it from the fact that when we adjust from ourselves and meet our own needs, we're actually empowering and validating other people to do the same. That's a big mindset shift for me too.
Yeah. I think that to me as a therapist, that was the biggest one because we get trained to don't share anything about your personal life. I'm like, why not? I'm asking my clients to be so open with me. And of course, I understand like we need to have boundaries, but if they don't see me as a person that's also going through these things, then they might think that I'm just sitting there making notes about them, you know, all the time. So I think that that's the thing that makes me relate so well with my clients is that they feel like, oh, okay, Karla's also overwhelmed
Mm,
in these situations. She's also nervous in the first session, second session, third session,
mm,
100th session. I also get nervous. And then, yeah, just having those people later on, friends like that. A lot of my clients have actually become friends. So
mm.
then we can't do sessions anymore. Do you know what one thing is
Yeah.
amazing that I would highly recommend is having a group chat with one or two, well, one more than one, because otherwise it's not a group, I guess. But I have a group chat with two other ADHDers, and the stuff that we just say that it's like our safe group,
Mm,
like our comfort blanket. Because I would say, I message the guy, I'm waiting for a response, and they're like, "Oh no, don't check your phone. Put your phone away.
mm,
Go do this. Distract yourself. Watch a comfort movie." If I say this to other people, they'd be like,
mm,
"Why are you so obsessed with this person?" I'm
mm.
not obsessed. I just
Yeah.
I just need somebody that understands that anxiety that I'm feeling. Like,
Mm.
when's he gonna message? When's he
The
gonna?
waiting mode.
It's like every minute. It's like it's been 1 minute. When is he messaging?
Exactly
uh,
that. Like that understanding is so good. Like you just
so
need it. You
important.
need that.
You have a friend that you do videos with sometimes that I see that I love the fact that you guys go or girls, women go on outings and then you'll
Mm.
say, okay, we did this and I felt good because she helped me through this environment that was overwhelming. So I really like that you're advocating with videos about this too.
Yeah, it's so nice to have those people and to be able to share those
Yeah.
experiences. And I think for me, I always thought I would never find those people. I always thought I'd be on my own and not have that. And actually now I want other people to see that there will be the people in the world that will love you for who you are and see that for who you are and will accommodate your needs as you deserve them to be. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I want to do a few more questions and then I want to get to the audience questions.
Yes.
What about shame? It's a big one, right? Because that's another internalizing symptom that we feel. I'm seeing that a lot now with the research that
Mm,
I'm doing. How do we reduce some of the shame around needing support from others? Like maybe if it's friends or official or more traditional support. I don't, I hope there's not a lot of shame on seeing a therapist, but maybe even just the shame that we're feeling when we're opening up at the workplace and we're saying, look, I need a bit more of a quieter space. Do you have any advice there?
yeah. Yeah, I think it is so tricky, like that sort of anxiety. And I think for me, like seeing it as, okay, the universe has not been designed for me. This is how the steps that are going to be taken for me to make things more equal and to make it a fairer playing field for me. So I think seeing it in that way is also really helpful. But I think for a long time, I thought that in order to ask for support or to ask for adjustments, that it needed to be like a desperate situation where I couldn't survive without those adjustments. But actually, for me, asking before I get to the point where I really need them is so helpful. Like asking for, okay, I need this adjustment. Maybe it's like a quiet space, or maybe it's having like my noise cancelling headphones. Having those things before I desperately need them is so important. And
Mm,
actually, just because I could survive without it doesn't mean I should. So that was a really big like reframe for me in terms of taking away that shame that I had around asking for that support. And I think again it comes back to that realization of when I ask for that support, I'm actually making the environment sometimes better for everyone. I've sometimes asked for the lights to be dimmed, and then suddenly a room full of non-autistic people are going, "Oh, this is so much nicer." Like I feel much more comfortable. It's like less I can concentrate more, whatever that is. Like when we ask for those adjustments, actually we're helping other people as well and reducing that shame.
yeah, that's awesome because the accommodations that we usually need,
Mm.
they're great for everybody. And it's
Mm.
usually making the space a bit more like, I don't know, just like sensory friendly. So it's not going to be that we're going to ask for like Christmas lights going on and off the whole time. Maybe just like something quiet, something
Mm.
restful. I actually really like Christmas lights, but they shouldn't be like flickering
Mm.
just in the
Yeah,
background.
very
I like fairy
overstimulating.
lights. Yeah. Yeah, it's too overstimulating. Okay, what about anxiety when it impacts relationships? And how can neurodivergent people communicate their needs without feeling like a burden? I hear that word a lot. Even in my group with the safe
Mm.
girls, we would say something and somebody would say something and they would talk about a certain topic and they would say, oh, I'm sorry if I'm a burden. And that I really wish that we could, I don't know, it's so difficult because when somebody says to me that they're feeling like a burden, I'm like, that's the opposite of what I'm experiencing. But how do you think with relationships that we can work through that? I know it's a very difficult topic, but maybe you have all the
Yeah.
answers?
Yeah, like I think there's so much around like what you say around almost that reframing it of if a friend was asking me for these things, how would I feel about that? And holding that feelings to then myself. But I've also got this new sort of phrase for myself this year of like, if I'm too much, go and find less. Like it's not down for me to shrink
Yes.
myself, to shrink my needs. And actually, if it's too much for other people, then that's sort of their situation. It's not down to me to shrink myself to make other people comfortable for things that I need to exist in the world. Like if I need a quieter space, and that's not my responsibility to shrink myself and to feel less than because of those needs. So I think it's that combination of actually, if it was my friend in that scenario, like I would have all the empathy and all the understanding for that person. And actually, if people aren't understanding, then it's not my situation necessarily to solve, and actually it's for them to go and find less for themselves.
That's such a good saying. I'm definitely going to use that. Can I use that one?
Yes, please
Thank
spread
you.
it far and wide.
Go find less. Go find
Yes.
less. That's like a nice way of not swearing.
Yes.
That's awesome. I love it. So you could use that in meetings too. But it is so true. Like I often ask my clients, I'm like, would you speak to anyone the way that you would speak to yourself? And it's the same principle. It's like, no. And if you would, then that's not the person that you want to have in your space. So yeah, it's a great way of looking at it. Okay, one more question and then we're going to go over. And I'm really proud of myself with sticking to the time, hey, because
Yes.
time blindness is definitely a thing for me.
Very real.
So if someone listening realizes this explains a lot to me, like out there, what's one gentle takeaway you'd want them to leave with?
I think your needs are valid. You are allowed to experience overwhelm in this world as it is. It is really challenging. It is not your fault. You are okay as you are. And of course, if it's too much for other people, then they need to go and find less, I think will be the lasting message.
Yeah, that's such a like drop mic moment. I love that. Okay, we've got some. Thank you so much, by the way, Lou. Those are awesome. I love you've got like a neuro nugget brain. That's what you have.
I love it. I love it.
I want your brain as like all the neuro nuggets in caboose. Everything you say is so valuable. So let's go over to some of the audience questions because we've got quite a few here. So Steve was asking, hi everyone, and thanks Karla and Lou for running this webinar. I'd be interested to hear whether you have the same experience of me where you feel angst but don't know why. Just like the vibe feels, the vibe, yes, that's a big thing, hey? It's like that interception, we just know when something isn't right, but it makes you massively unsettled. If you do you have any tips to manage it? This is a great question. Lou, do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think for me, a lot of that comes from that difficulty identifying emotions and like that difficulty knowing how I'm feeling. Like a lot of the time, I really struggle to even identify those feelings. And I have that sort of sense that things are off, but I don't actually know what is off and what is wrong. So I think for me, like can be really helpful to use like an emotion wheel where it has like sort of different emotions around it that you can kind of see and help to identify actually what emotion am I experiencing in this sort of current time if you're struggling with that sort of identification. But I've also realised it can also happen to me when something physical isn't right. Like I know sort of that interoception, that struggle of identifying those internal feelings. Things like even being hungry or thirsty or tired or being too hot or cold, all of those different sensations for me, sensory perspective, I really find hard to identify. So that can really feed into that feeling of something being off and not knowing why. And I like created a little checklist for myself of like different things that it could be. So it'll be like, have I drunk water in this amount of time? Have I eaten? Have I like taken off my jumper if it's too hot? Like all of those different things that I won't necessarily pick up on, I have as like a checklist so that I can identify if it is actually something internal or emotional or sort of picking up on what that vibes are. And I think sometimes as well, like this feeling can be related to sometimes like in social situations, for example, I will get a sense that something is off. And sometimes that can be related to like that pattern seeking as an autistic person. Like my brain will be picking up on patterns that have happened in the past that I'm not consciously aware of, but actually my brain is almost like unconsciously picking up on sort of those patterns in how people communicate or how things have happened before. And actually that can trigger anxiety as well. Having that trust of like my intuition, if something is off, I think is also really useful.
Yeah, I love that you said that, because I wanted to add a ninth sense to, we've got like our 8 senses, our 5 typical senses, and then our 3 like proprioception, vestibular, and interoception. And then I strongly believe, but it's not scientifically proven yet, that we have this affective sense where we walk into a room and we're just like, something's off. I can feel it. I can smell it. Like something isn't quite right. I'm just not going to vibe with these people. And I can't say it's because they said something or they did something. It's just there's something not right. And I love that you said trust your intuition there. I would say for myself, personally, I would say, is it fear of rejection or the social part of things? Or is it that intuitive sense something's off? Usually it's intuitive. Usually it's like, these people are incongruent. So again, the pattern, like they say something and they do something else, and I dislike that. Or it is, I don't sit well with the morals. Like they might be speaking about, something that I disagree with heavily. So it's something that it's like my innate personality just dislikes, and I'm not going to be able to be okay with this. So it's usually an incongruence of morals and what they say.
And it's almost untangling like what it is and getting to the bottom of actually, is it almost that like what they're saying? What is it that actually is that like uncomfortable sort of pattern seeking related to as well? And like untangling where it is right to sort of distance yourself, definitely.
So I think to answer your question, Steve, I don't know if we answered it, but I think for me it would be, again, like what Lou said in the beginning or throughout, was that validate that, like it is something is up. Maybe it is something that you're feeling. Maybe it's your emotions at that stage, but I would trust my intuition and double check that it's not a bad environment, and maybe just getting out of the environment and then going through that checklist that you were talking about, Lou. Creating your own checklist, Okay, so we've got quite a few longer questions. I want to make sure that I get through them. Yes, so thank you much for answering. Okay, so I think it did answer the question. Okay, so here, I'm interested in the connection between anxiety and autism and a possible overactive sympathetic response in social situations. My autistic 17-year-old daughter reports that her heart races so much that it hurts. Oh, shame. That's intense, eh? And she can see it pulsing at the side of her eyes. She has this weak prescribed propranolol, maybe, by the GP. I'm not good with big words. I'm sorry, medicinal words. By the GP for her migraines, and it had an immediate effect of slowing our heart rate. It is early days, but she said she was able to hold eye contact and speak with her teachers, something that she wasn't able to do before. Importantly, it has enabled her to listen in her lessons at college, where before she couldn't. She says she has always felt anxious as far as she can remember. Not sure what my question is, but I didn't expect such a marked change for her. And previously, I thought there was no way to change her response, but only change the environment she was in, for example, by giving her accommodations at college. Do you have any comments on that, Lou, with the medication?
I think that is like definitely something around that internal body sensations. And like sometimes, like for me, I find that my internal body sensations are sort of underactive. Like I struggle to pick up on things like my heart being really fast or like those sensations, and struggle to pick up on that anxiety. But I also know it's almost that some people are the opposite in terms of they pick up overly on those sensations, like that sort of thing you described around that anxiety as well, and being able to feel those physical sensations in a really sort of extreme way. And I even know autistic people who have described being able to feel the blood almost pumping around their body and those sensations being really intense. I think that, that is really valid and really important that we have that understanding of actually the different picking up of the anxiety and how our body sort of internally feels can be very different to how it might be for non-autistic people, and having that understanding and having things like those when it's right, like that medication to be able to support that, I think, it's really important.
Natalia also said here, I will say I'm on something similar to, how can I not say this word? Propanolol for heart issues. And it's actually been literally a game changer for just constant underlying panic you get. Okay, so, I mean, obviously neither of us are psychiatrists, but I would say that if it's working and your psychiatrist is fine with it, then that's great. I used to have a smartwatch and I tracked everything and I was getting obsessed with it. So I was like, oh, my HRV is a little bit down. I need to do this. My heart rate, I need to do more steps. It's getting to the point where my heart rate would increase because I wasn't doing enough exercise. I was making myself more anxious because I was over tracking. So I'm definitely one of those individuals that notices, oh, this is a lot of like when I'm sweating, I'm noticing and I'm feeling it very intensely. So I would not need, I don't want to track anything anymore, but I need to be able to just stay healthy and have my psychiatrist double check my blood pressure and so on, because I am on ADHD medication, which I can't pronounce, by the way. That's one that I can't pronounce. But yeah, I think checking in with your doctor, making sure that if it is working, that it's, safe to continue taking. And then mentioning that, some people are quite highly sensitive to changes in their bodies. And it actually makes it worse sometimes when we focus on it. So like if I focus on my neck being red, it goes more red. If I focus on the sweat against, next to my nose, I sweat more. So yeah, I think it's maybe just validating all of those things again. I just want to make sure. Okay, we've got another question here. We've got a couple more. On the topic of difficulty with change, are there any tips in how to understand what exactly is causing the distress to the sudden change? I'm more newly diagnosed with autism. I understand I struggle with change, but I've struggled to figure out why exactly it upsets me so much. I'd love to be able to communicate with my loved ones about why my change is difficult for me, and just don't exactly know why. That we touched on this, but I don't know if you have any specific advice there that
Yeah,
Kay
I
can
think
help
for
with.
me, like being able to sort of communicate where the anxiety is coming from, I think it can be around sort of people understanding what the environment is like for us and how that impacts that sense of change. I watched there's like this video that shows what it's like to be an autistic person in a shopping centre, and it shows like the sensory environment and all of those things. And actually I think showing that to people around me really helped them understand how like sensory and anxiety and all of those things can be really difficult when you're autistic. And yeah, I think it is really sort of important as well.
Yeah, I think communicating what you said earlier made such a difference when you said, I sometimes just say what I'm feeling or what I'm going through. And I think that's such a nice strategy, if you want to call it a strategy, because if I say to my friends or people that don't really know a lot about ADHD, I'm like, oh, it's because I've got ADHD. They're like, oh, ADHD. Oh, I've seen a video of that. And their mind goes off and it relates to something else. But if I say, this place is really loud, it's really I don't, or there was a change, like Kate was saying, there was a change and I'm feeling dysregulated now because I was prepared for this. That doesn't say I'm autistic and I struggle with change, because when they hear autism, they might think of a video that they watched of one person. So I think maybe mentioning exactly what you're feeling. And the reason for that is we know that change is difficult because of all the reasons that you mentioned, Lou, like, the patterns that we've created, and we're so focused on details and we like to be prepared. So we're preparing for all of these things, and then something changes. It's like a knock-on effect, like those dominoes. Like now everything feels like it's changed and stressful. Okay, I'm going to do one more question. This has been absolutely lovely. So I'm trying to get through all of the questions, but I think this is the one that I want to end on to just make sure. that we answer everybody, or most of the questions, I guess. Vishnu was asking or saying, I was misdiagnosed with type 2 bipolar disorder. This is a very common thing that I see as a therapist. People coming into my therapy saying that they were diagnosed with bipolar, borderline, anxiety, depression, the things that we sometimes see as an after effect because of our neurodivergence. So some of these symptoms. And was put on the wrong medication. Oh, I'm not even going to try and say that, sorry. A mood stabilizer for about a year. I'm now in a new country and I got an autism and ADHD diagnosis. Primary problem now is that I'm a student, 21 years old, and that I don't have much time for exams, but I'm already burnt out and scared or sad about studying the subject that I like and chose. Oh, that's sad. As far as anxiety, I feel like that has always been a part of my life or a part of me. My understanding was that it was protecting me from being too problematic. Now I'm on another medication, atomoxetine, 80 milligram, and it's helping me with attention and anxiety. Maybe some tips on how to actually practice being kind to myself and start getting things done study-wise would be very helpful. I don't know if this is off topic. Not at all. It's not off topic. I just feel really sad that you're in a burnt out stage. So I just have a lot of empathy for that. Lou, do you have any tips for
Yeah.
Vishnu?
Yeah, I think it is such a difficult one in terms of that burnout and that exhaustion, also those challenges around sort of things like misdiagnosis. I think it is so common in terms of those experiences. And I think for me, like definitely when I've been in times of burnout, like giving myself that time to rest, like I will have like at least one day a week where I have zero social plans, zero plans for work, zero plans for anything, so that I'm literally just having that time to rest and regulate and to do whatever I feel like and have that time to sort of bring myself back and sort of reduce that anxiety. I've also found like when I'm burnt out, the love I have for things like my interests and the joys that I have, like it can completely reduce, and actually like resting and can sometimes bring back those joys and those passions as well. And I think for me, like I found that my black and white thinking made education so difficult, because my brain was like, if I don't do the best I ever can in this exam, like everything is failing. And like actually now realizing actually it's okay like to not do well in an exam. It's okay to not like do academically what you want to. Like it doesn't mean that you are a bad person or that you are failing in a certain way. So I think having that acknowledgement of actually the system and the education system isn't always designed for our brains, and that's okay. And it's okay to sort of see that bigger picture of understanding that it is not everything about us and there are other things too. So I think having that time to rest, having that time to regulate, building in those interests and that sensory regulation during burnout can be really important as well. I also found having structure quite useful. So having like a plan of myself of actually, this is what I'm going to study when, and I'm going to set an alarm at this time to make sure I do have a break and rest and regulate as well.
Yeah, there are so many things. Hey, I think like having time boxed periods, because it's like you said, it's all or nothing for us, especially when we're in a burnt out phase. We have a lot of neuro nuggets on burnt out individuals and what we can do to help ourselves. I would recommend going to check them out in Caboose. There's also, I mean, we can speak about this for an hour. I would recommend to take away all of your shoulds. So I should do this. I have to do this. I need to finish this, and just give yourself, like Lou was saying, a lot of space. Burning out can last quite a long time to being burnt out, and it's way further than feeling overwhelmed. I wish that we had more time to talk about this topic. Maybe it's something that we can talk about when you come back, Lou.
Yes, definitely.
Yes. Okay. That's awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for the amazing questions. I really, really enjoyed the participation and it was amazing. But thank you also, Lou, for just being a wealth of information, and just the way that you say things is so eloquent. And I absolutely love all of your tips and strategies, but just who you are. I really appreciate you being here. So please continue to advocate for us neurodivergent individuals, because the way that you advocate is absolutely beautiful, and it's so what we need. So from the bottom of
Thank
my heart,
you.
thank you.
Thank you so much to you as well for having me and for hosting so amazing. I always feel so safe and comfortable in this space. So thank you so much to you and to everyone
Nice.
who's asked and answered questions. Like, it's always so lovely to connect with the community. So thank you so much from me.
Thank you. Oh, that's nice to hear that you're feeling safe. That's the one thing I do want to create is a safe space. I'm just going to quickly do a wrap up here. So, reminder to the audience that we have a range of divergent discussions coming up. You can find all the details on the Caboose app. If you're not on Caboose, get Caboose. I'm there. I do a mental health hangout every Monday, which is awesome. And we obviously have a lot of neuro nuggets. So, and it's newly launched. Lou is there. I'm there. A lot of other people are there. They're short, practical guides that help you understand how your brain works and find ways to make work and life easier. And you can also share those with your employees. They're also for workplaces to help create more inclusive spaces created by neurodivergent people with lived experiences. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your time. And I'm sorry we're 2 minutes over, but it wouldn't have been me if we didn't go over or under time.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.